I had an inspired understanding yesterday that I really want to share because it's in 24 hours has done such profound things for me. It's interesting to me how I can hear a teaching from multiple sources, multiple thought leaders, spiritual leaders, and have an intellectual understanding of it and go, yeah, I believe that. And then it's not until something down the line hits that I realized I really only had a cursory understanding, but that I wasn't integrating it into my actual experience. And this is what happened to me yesterday. And that inspired thought was, I'm not my feelings. I've heard that from so many places. There's so many different analogies people give, like, hey, think about your feelings as a river and watch it pass by, or the ocean, watching it come in and go out, or clouds. This idea of look at your feelings as something external, don't identify with them, and then know that they are going to come and go, ebb and flow. Yeah, I believe that. But what really was able to become a true understanding for me yesterday is those feelings are not truth. They're not what's actually real. How can they be? How can I be really high one moment, really low an hour later, especially in these last few weeks, and then have them cycle back and forth? That can't be what's real, right? Truth doesn't change that quickly. So, what is the truth? It went beyond this for me yesterday into thinking that I'm not just my feelings, I'm also not my thoughts, I'm not my beliefs, and I'm not my bodily sensations. And when I think about thoughts, my brain is always so over the place. I'm all over the place. I like to joke that my thoughts think me. And it's really hard for me to get them to stop. And my thoughts are not truth. I'll give you a really quick example. Yesterday, I'm sitting there, I don't even know what I was doing, and I started to think about the next time I take my daughter to an empty parking lot that's next to us for her to ride her scooter. And I started to think, what if a vehicle drives into this parking lot at the same time she's riding her scooter and I'm somewhere else away? And I went into this um, frenzy of thinking about this. And then I remembered my understanding and I'm like, Amanda, stop. You are literally creating a fictitious scenario in your head. And now you're having real feelings come up, real, right? About something that is actually not even a real scenario. Yes, be vigilant, do all the things, but why are you allowing there to be emotional and thought real estate being taken up by this right now? And so I was able to kind of catch hold of it. And then my beliefs. I have beliefs that I hold today about certain topics that if you were to ask me about that 10 years ago, it would have been a completely different 180 viewpoint. My beliefs have shifted over time. So my beliefs, if I've had a belief change, then that belief is not me. And that belief is certainly not truth. And then bodily sensations was the last one that I kind of sat with, and especially lately because my knee's been bothering me. And if I can get down to what is actually real for me, it's not my bodily sensations. And so as I was sitting there, and I'm like, okay, if I'm not my feelings, I'm not my beliefs, I'm not my bodily sensations, um, I'm not my thoughts, then what the fuck am I? Like, what is truth? And there was that voice that immediately came in and said, it's the deep down. So if you think about the analogy of the ocean, and we put our awareness on day to day on the surface, right? The crashing waves, the tide going in, the tide going out, then that changes. That's all over the place. At the same time, there exists a place in the ocean hundreds of feet down that's completely still. It's that place that is deep down, right? We know it's all going to be okay, that we can access. And I really had an awareness yesterday that I can choose to live from that place. I can choose to live from the deep down. And that's liberating. So liberating that it actually can be a choice for me. So this went from an intellectual understanding of I'm not my feelings, I'm not my thoughts, to owning it. If that's real and I believe that, then I'm presented hundreds, probably 1,000 times a day, an opportunity of where I want to pivot from. Do I want to pivot from the surface that is all over the place all the time, especially with recent events? Or do I want to pivot from the deep down place? And another example of how I was able to put this into practice, I shared something with a friend recently that was emotionally hard. something had just happened and I had a lot of disappointment, and I shared it. And the next time I heard from this friend, um, they talked about a couple things but didn't acknowledge this thing that I shared. And immediately my knee jerk reaction was like, hey, like, what about this thing that I shared? And then I was able to remember this understanding. And what it allowed me to do is I dropped into what my friend was sharing, which was all positive things. And what transformed for me immediately was I went into joy. I was so happy authentically for this person and was really sitting with the joy of them wanting to share these positive things with me. I hold this belief that we're not separate, right? That there's an illusion of separateness, but that if we're all coming from source, that we're all the same. And I know a lot of people hold this belief. And this understanding of diving into that source is making that more real for me as well. So if I can remember from that perspective that we're all connected, then that becomes truth as well. So the other part my brain was trying to figure out is, okay, well, again, what is truth? If you're not any of these things, how do you make it tangible? And again, it became so obvious to me whenever I have spiritual revelations or insights, or I always want to be drawn to nature. Nature offers so much. And I thought, nature is truth. So nature's unfolding the way that it's going to unfold. A tree, a plant is unfolding because of its circumstances, exactly how it is, unfolding into the splendor of exactly what it's going to become. And I believe I'm no different than that. And if I truly operate from that place of being a child of the universe, operating from source, it's so incredibly liberating. And I know I won't always be able to stay in that place. I was sharing this with a friend yesterday, and I told him, I said, please feel free to remind me that I'm having these insights, that I get to choose what level I want to operate from. And so I made these little cards. There's one there. There's one on my wall over here. I put one in my bathroom, that just say essentially like, I'm not my feelings, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions. Because what I'm going to need for quite some time is a tangible reminder that this was truth for me. And it feels really exciting. I also shared with the same friend, I said, I have this excitement about the next time I experience negative emotions because I'm really excited about putting this into practice. And sure enough, I hopped on social media before going to bed last night. Hadn't been on social media for a while, and there were a couple things that immediately brought me down. And I was like, And then I remembered, hey, Amanda, like, why are you on social media before going to bed? That is never a wise choice. And two, you're not those feelings. So they're here, they're up, they're down, and that's surface level. Shift your consciousness, shift your awareness to the deep down where things are still, and be in that place. And I'm so excited to see where this is going to lead me. And I know part of it is being able to give those things to myself, not looking to external sources for the validation, not putting my emotional controls in other people's hands. All that's going to be huge. So I was really excited to share that. I'm going to keep sitting with it, keep meditating with it, and I'm super curious as to where it's going to lead. But it went from being an intellectual understanding to an embodied experience, and it's been worth the price of quarantine. And I'll keep sharing as I come to more understandings around it all.